Haumetakuapi, Ambetiwashte. Hello, my relatives. Today is a good day. Except for, no, I'm just kidding. This couple of days I'm going to be entering my 72nd winter. I wrote my autobiography, Where White Men Fear to Tread. And that covers up to about 1990. 1991, up to when I first made The Last of the Mohicans. And so, in the America I grew up in, it was libertarian. Small economics, local economics, truck farming, the groceries. This was before supermarkets. The grocers had to go down to where they brought in the fresh vegetables or they trucked them in from the fields. And they selected them every morning. You'd see the grocers down there at the docks where they brought in the trucks with all the fresh vegetables. And they'd pick them out, weigh them, head back to the store with a load. Bread was made fresh. And then, if it wasn't picked up that day, they took it back to the distributor, and the distributor of the bread company would resell the bread at a cheaper price, day-old bread. Then there's 2-day-old bread. Imagine an America like that. Making bread without preservatives. What an idea. Wow. For commercial purposes. Wow. It was a time in America when there was complete trust. The newspaper companies, for instance. They had little metal newsstands with a holder that would have spring activated, just a regular little spring on it. They pull it open, put the newspapers in there for that day, and on the side was a little cylinder with a slot for a dime. That's how much newspapers cost. They'd put a dime in there and take one newspaper. And these were on the different corners throughout the city. They trusted you to take one newspaper and pay for it. They weren't mini safes like they are now, with double plastic, so you can't cut it open and reach in and get a free newspaper. But the point being is the trust America had in its own people. The business community trusted the American people not to take advantage of free newspapers. Wow. I kind of miss that America. And I feel sorry for those of you who never experienced it. The trust. Of course, that's before corporations had so much power, because they were all local, and there were many corporations. They hadn't relaxed the rules because of the Sherman Antitrust Act, which prevented the oil companies from owning everything. There was a time in America, not too long ago, before $1 a gallon gasoline, when the oil companies did not own the refineries. They were separate entities. So oil companies would make deals with different refineries. And there was competition they had what was called gas wars. I remember gasoline getting down to 11 cents a gallon, and the norm being about 30 cents a gallon. 30 cents a gallon. But the Sherman Antitrust Act would not allow huge, that's how they broke up Standard Oil. That was a huge conglomerate. It was too big. They used the Sherman Antitrust Act, which was passed at the beginning of the 20th century, 100 years ago, to prevent what has happened today. Yeah, I remember that in America, when children were safe. We went to the playground by ourselves, no adults. 6-year-olds playing marbles down at the playground because there was dirt. We didn't like the asphalt playgrounds because you couldn't get real and play dirt, dig a little hole in there and play what we call holesies. America had national marble tournaments for the young kids, different ages. They had the soapbox derby. Every city, every small town had a soapbox derby racer where the kids built their own racers out of spare parts and made little coasters. You coasted down the hill. You raced. Soapbox derby, it's called. It all began because of soapboxes made into little, and that's what the kids started that, not the adults. The kids started the soapbox racing. We had yo-yo, national yo-yo contest. We had local, regional, state, and national yo-yo champions, man. In our grade schools, the well-known yo-yo champions of the United States of America would come and give demonstrations. It was a big deal, you know? It was really something being in America. When I went to high school, I took wood shop. There we had the wood, all the wood, any wood, every wood was available for us to work with. And we were neophytes. Of course, we had a teacher who was an expert, and he had an assistant in the shop. And we'd make cabinets, or we'd make shelves. We had metal shop, we had radio shop, we had auto mechanics shop, and we had what was called college prep courses. I took college prep courses. I took shop courses. I took mechanical drawing. I didn't like radio shop. I had metal shop, I had wood shop, automotive, auto mechanics shop, and mechanical drawing, as well as algebra, trigonometry, Spanish, and French. I took French. It was a wonderful time in America. It was something I cherish. You know? Kids being free. We didn't have to get permission from the school to use the playground. The playground wasn't locked. There was no fences. Get this. They had, at high schools, they had a smoking lot where high school kids who smoked went to smoke. They were confined to an area. Isn't that something? You know, I'm not saying it's good or bad. The point is the condition of America. How they treated young adults. Young adults. Amazing time. Wow. You know, we played all over the city. We had different neighborhoods where we'd go and play as kids. We rode our bicycles, everywhere. Me and my younger brother. We went all over the town. We went to the swimming pool, which was across town. Sometimes we walked because we had flats, and could repair our inner tubes. I remember the inner tube. We made slingshots, from old inner tubes. And we practiced those. We didn't buy them. We went to a tree and we cut where it forked. And then we fastened with wire the rubber on the two forks, and we pulled it back. We had the leather thing here. It was really something. We had to be inventive. You could make a short one, short and powerful, or make a long one, which bring it way back. Hunt squirrels with them. Didn't really eat the squirrels. It was a time in America when it was much safer. And I remember the wars, World War II. I very vaguely remember World War II. We had a lot of soldiers and sailors in our house come through to visit. A lot of family. And then the Korean War. And then the Philippines War, which is still ongoing. We felt bad about the wars. There was always war movies, but those weren't our favorites. Our favorite movies were westerns with the theme of the hero, Movies that were about past heroes with values. It was fiction, but it was good fiction for young people. We didn't zoom here and zoom there, and we were invincible. It wasn't. Some of the heroes were very vulnerable. Different time. Too bad it had to go by. Then I became a teenager. And I was into rhythm and blues. That was cool music, man. The teen club. We had a teen club. That had one adult there. We went to skating rinks and went to sock hops. I saw the advent of rock and roll arrive. Bill Haley and the Comets. Rock Around the Clock. Then Elvis Presley. Whoa. And then came the white bread music. Pat Boone. It was a good time in America. And then came the 60s. To be continued. Every once in a while I get nostalgic about the values that I learned growing up, the safety of growing up. Dokshake.